as the Supreme Court gets set to rule on the legality of same-sex marriage in India, the centre has filed a strong appeal to the court. They've said that same-sex marriage is a mere urban elitist view for the purpose of social acceptance, those very words. The centre has argued that it is not up to the court to rule on a key issue. The legislature needs to decide on this. So same-sex marriage, is this a basic right, or should religious and social mores determine its future in our country? That's what we're looking at. Joining us now, first up, Oneer, the well-known filmmaker and LGBTQIA rights expert. LGBTQIA. It's something which is the digits keep getting added on, and the alphabets keep getting added on, and it just reflects the fact that there is a reality which we've ignored for so long that it's time perhaps that we all need to wake up. But I think if you look at what the government has said, they've submitted that this is an urban elitist view, right? Same-sex marriage for the purpose of social acceptance. How would you respond, Oneer?
First of all, I just find it extremely ridiculous that, how do you come to a position which totally denies that sexuality is not based on which city you live in? It does not have the divide of class, caste, religion, that we have all these divides in our society, but sexuality does not depend on that. And there's a huge rural population that's also, that belongs to the queer community. And how can you say that they do not deserve happiness? How can you say that the quest for happiness, the quest to have our basic rights, to live together in dignity, to be married, to be able to open a bank account together, is only the aspirations of the urban elite, and it's not something that every single human being wants, whether they're set in a B-town or rural, wherever. It's
also factually incorrect. How does anybody reach the conclusion that people who are not in urban cities, who are gay and want to be in a relationship which is a marriage, don't exist? How do you assume that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that is what I mean. The very fact that you're assuming that this is only the desire of a community that's set in the cities is absolutely ridiculous, without any research, and it's almost like a sense of desperation that tomorrow is a judgment, and we all hope that the Supreme Court stands up for human rights and not led by such bizarre, suggestions. And I feel that desperation is leading to coming up with any and every, argument which makes absolutely, sometimes you wonder that where does this come from? Where does these kind of arguments come from, which has no scientific or, there's no data. It's just absolutely bizarre.
Oneer, let's move away from this point and look at another argument which was put forward in the petition, that the views of religious leaders, religious denominations has to be kept in mind, personal laws have to be kept in mind, customs have to be kept in mind, and there is past precedent on all of these grounds to deny same-sex marriage. How would you respond to that?
One is, of course, we have the Special Marriage Act, which can always be applied to us. But also I feel how unfair it is to deny this right to someone who is a practicing Hindu or Muslim or Christian who wants to follow their religion and at the same time get married. And I feel that it is, why should religion or social norms, anything be static? Anything that is unwilling to change for better? And I feel that history and culture, everything is, one looks at that to become better, not to just oppress a certain community using all these excuses. So I personally feel that, of course, there is the possibility of the Special Marriage Act, but it's unfair to those who want to, who want to just be a part of their religion and not out of it. It's their choice.
Oneer, another point, the field of marriage, the petition says, if it were changed, if there were same-sex marriages which were allowed, it would have a, quote, inevitable cascading effect on several other statutes. As in that, take out the whole card, the entire system of cards would come crashing down.
I just,
all of it.
wondering if tomorrow I get married, how is it that my heterosexual neighbor who's living next door, how is their marriage going to fall apart? How does me opening a bank account with my partner affect anybody else's, the way they go about their life? How do I being having the ability to make a house, to have a property with my partner, change anything for all those? They already have all these rights. How does giving another person his rights or her rights or their right take away anything from you, unless you want to deny us our right because you want to take over those rights. You want to keep that power structure. Maybe you want
Though,
to
Onir, you would agree that if same-sex marriage is legalized in India, there have to be additional laws which guarantee additional rights. For example, what you mentioned about opening a bank account together, that's one very small example. Think about adoption, right? The rights of that child. These are profound things which also have to be legislated with. So if there is a favorable judgment, same-sex marriage does happen, it cannot just be left at that. All of the rights which go along with that need to be legalized.
Absolutely, and that should not be the reason to stop it, because I feel that, when you take a step, of course, you have to take additionals. Today when you build a dam, you're relocating people, right? You're looking at the adverse effects that it has on ecology and how do you address it. Similarly, when you take this, you have to address things like adoption. And adoption, again, the excuses, the apprehensions that people is absolutely does not make sense. They talk of child abuse, which, today there are boys and girls who are abused by men. That does not stop anybody from, having heterosexual marriages.
Sexuality doesn't define abuse. Abuse is abuse. It goes.
Yes. And similarly, just like heterosexual couples need counseling, someone needs to monitor when a child is adopted, to see that the child is happy and the parents are prepared to accept. It has to be the same for a homosexual couple. They need to be monitored, they need to be counseled, and the child needs to be protected. And of course these laws need to come, in place but that shouldn't be a reason to stop us from getting our right.
Yeah. Look, Onir, you're welcome to stay on, but I've got a panel over here as well. I'm joined by Sachin Jain, Administrator of Ghar, which is the Gay Housing Assistance Resource. Shashank Shekhar Jha, he's an advocate in the Supreme Court. He's got concerns about same-sex marriage being legalized. We've got Dr. Surbhi Mitra, she's an equal rights activist, and we've got Rahul Ishwar, who's got concerns about same-sex marriage going ahead. Shashank Shekhar Jha, let me come to you first. To those who are members of the LGBTQIA community, marriage is just an extension of normalcy in their lives. Why deny anybody a chance at living a life which you and I live? We are both married and we are happy. Why deny somebody that right on the basis of their sexuality?
Namaste Vishnuji and every other panelists. Vishnuji, 2 points and 2 rights. We as a society has an individual rights and as a societal rights. Now with individual rights, you have the right for LGBT community where they can have their own personal preferences as far as their sexual partners are concerned. But then when you consider and talk about the culture or the social aspects or social rights, you need to study the norms, the culture, the tradition and every other aspect to it. And that is why how society builds through time immemorial. Now in this country and many other places across, now you have a traditional system which is coming through religious aspects also, which says that a biological man and a woman can have a married life. Whereas in India, you have a system of, say, a live-in relationship where anyone, irrespective of religion or, say, gender, can live together. Now, if you want that those individual rights should be clubbed with the cultural rights, that will give rise to multiple other aspects and difficulties as far as norms are concerned, as far as cultures
No,
are
what
concerned.
difficulties?
And one
That
more
I- in
important
fact,
fact
I-
is that there
Shashank,
are not
what
enough studies
difficulties?
to show that how it will affect or impact the life and livelihood of the welfare of the child of the society.
No, okay. So, what are the problems? You believe that what children might be impacted if their parents are gay? Is that what you're saying? What are the other reasons, Shashank? I'm trying to understand. When
Yes.
you say that
Yes,
it would
Vishnu.
impact, what would it impact?
Yeah, so Vishnuji, I guess again now there are 3 points here. One, we do not have adequate studies to show as to how it impacts the welfare of the child. So whenever you make law or formulate a law, you need to have adequate studies as far as that is concerned. Now, point number 2 is that all those countries which are having these same-sex marriage laws currently are not regulated with personal laws. This is country called India, where say 95% or 99% population get them registered under personal laws. How can you say that you want to interpret Hindu Marriage Act altogether, which directly comes from our two Hindu schools of law, Dayabhag and Mitakshara? I guess that is not possible. Now, Islam says you cannot have same-sex marriage.
So personal
Christianity
laws,
says you cannot have same-sex
welfare
marriage,
of children.
and Hindus says
Shashank, let's leave it over there so that I can bring in my other panelists. Respond to that, Sachin Jain. We have different religions, we have different customs, different faiths, divergent religions, castes, subcastes, etc., and our system has always been to have marriage among heterosexual people, and therefore the argument that's made now is that that's the way it's always been, that's the way it should remain. How would you respond?
So my response is on the basis of the rights of the individual. I think all of us as queer individuals, we are born into these traditions. So for example, I am a practicing Jain. So Shashankji, like you mentioned, you talked about individual and societal norms, cultures, etc. So as a devout Jain who has been brought up in a Jain family, I am inside the culture. I am part of the Indian culture, and I don't like being othered. I don't like being treated as an adversary, as someone who is in opposition to what my culture stands for. So when I grow up, for example, I am all the time experiencing this dichotomy, right? Because the culture that I am born with and grown up with has its moral, its ethico-legal framework. And then, when my sexuality dawns or my sexuality awakens, and I realize that my fulfillment in a truest state of a union, with another person is with another man, then this is at odds. So already, so many of us are suffering from that. When you spoke, Shashankji, you talked about when you talked about individual level, you talked about sexual partners. But Shashankji, it's not just about sexual partners for us. It is about having a complete full life, of fulfillment, romantic fulfillment, emotional fulfillment, all of these things. And we are not standing in opposition to the norms, the culture, the traditions of our country. We are proud of it. हम भारतीय है, हमें भारतीय होने पे गर्व है. हम कोई किसी और ग्रह से नहीं आए हुए हैं, हम यहीं के हैं, यहीं पे पले बड़े हुए. And the other thing that we talked about is that there are things like domestic partnerships and, civil unions, etc. Now, the thing is, if we talk about equality before the law, then while these may confer many of those rights, which we are talking about, which is for the, different financial, social, etc. things, it is still lesser than what it is for a full marriage. So as citizens of India who are proud to be Indian and who have dignity, who pay tax, we want the full rights of being Indian. Also, you talked about I understand what you're talking about, that our country, there is the preponderance of personal rights, and the countries that have the other countries where these rights have been given. So from 2001, since the Netherlands actually okayed same-sex rights, there are about 25 countries in which gay marriage
there is
has
precedent elsewhere. Okay, lots of points, and you've got all your points at the tip of your fingers. So, Shashank, I'll come to you later. I want to go across to Rahul Ishwar. Rahul, you're a devout Hindu, and faith and our religion is very important for you. But in our Hindu faith, isn't equality before God something which is the basis of our faith? It is. And therefore, equality before God is all that, many of our panelists seek. It's the same God, it's the same faith. And therefore, why can you and I be equal in front of our God, and some of our panelists over here cannot be? Why?
Vishnuji, first of all, respect to Sri Unir and Sachin for their fight. I diverge in them in the position that we take regarding homosexuality, but at the same point of time, may their fights be fulfilled. All the best, and may God bless them. Second, let me be very honest with this, there are apprehensions in a huge majority of people regarding homosexual marriages. See, there was a meeting too where there were people from many communities, leaders from many communities. We all agreed that homophobia is bad. We should not promote homophobia. We should discourage homophobia, and we should discourage any kind of discriminatory practices. At the same point of time, not only in India but worldwide, people like Pope Francis have taken a very nuanced view. He rightly pointed out, who am I to judge others? But at the same point of time, Catholic Church, even led by a very reformist Pope Francis, is yet to, or perhaps will not, give acceptance to gay marriages. So there is a nuanced difference. One, yes, say no to homophobia, but second, marriage as a civil union, marriage as a sacrament, marriage as a social contract, marriage is an institution between a biological man and woman that survived for thousands of years. Many people are having apprehensions regarding this. Yes, it is up to the Supreme Court to decide. There should be equality before God. And one more thing, as Vishnuji rightly pointed out, in Hindu community, it's a bit more tolerant to diversity of gender or diversity of sexual preferences. But our Semitic friends, especially the Christian communities and Muslim communities, they have a bit more written theology where it is said Sodom and Gomorrah had negative experiences of homosexuality. So it's a bit more layered and nuanced debate. But I believe everyone at the end of the day agrees to the fact that homophobia should be discouraged. But yes, there are some spiritual, cultural reservations about the entire thing that I believe the activists from the homosexual community will be mindful of.
Okay. Dr. Mitra, there is this entire argument also. What the centre is arguing in the Supreme Court is that, look, it's not up to you, the Supreme Court, to decide on this. It is up to the legislature to decide on this. So how do you look at that argument?
Yeah, so in this I would like to add that had the parliament done something about it, it would have happened by now. But what has been happening is that a lot of governments, already we have put up petitions in the parliament multiple times, and various governments, I'm not saying that one particular government, but all the governments failed to do something for the LGBTQIA community. And that was the reason we had to approach the judiciary. That is very, very, very clear cut. And also just broaching upon the topic that is today's, that is, it is an urban elitist view and not a basic right. I actually have a small list which I will like to tell you.
Please, go ahead.
That is, it will just take me 30 seconds or something.
Go ahead.
In which you will see all aspects of the community, all castes, all religions, everything. In that, you'll see that certain people from the rural area have also come out proudly and they are doing wonderful work. So it's not an urban elitist idea. So, for example, the Kannada author Vasudendra inspired small town gay men to be out and proud. Lesbian couple from Mahisagar, Gujarat, and also a lesbian couple from rural Bundelkhand got married in front of media. Grace Banu, a Dalit transgender activist from Thudukudi, Tamil Nadu, supported trans women throughout the pandemic. Small towns boy Kaushik Hore started Queer Us, that brought queer people together in small towns, started Satrangi, also a trans feminine Indian livelihood venture. Rafael Alom Rahman decided and dedicated works to counter queerphobia and Islamophobia from Dhubri, Assam. He is also the founder of Queer Muslim Project. Duti Chand, as we know, the fastest sprinter in India, when she came out as a lesbian, her village disowned her. But she worked for the same village during the pandemic. And lastly, Dr. Manabi Bandopadhyay, small town in Naihati. She is the first transgender college principal. Her autobiography, that is a gift of Goddess Lakshmi, captures her journey, and it is very well read all throughout the country. These are just some examples. There are many more people doing a lot of work in the rural area as well, who are from the community, and this proves that in spite of the fact that there is not much research into it, because no research was being done by the government or any national body, that is the reason we couldn't know how many people are there in the rural or the urban. But it is a guarantee from my side, being a heavy reader in research and being a psychiatrist myself, that I have seen so many people from the LGBTQIA. So it is not an urban elitist thought. It is definitely a question of basic rights.
Shashank, would you like to respond to that? That there's nothing, exclusively urban about this. If you're gay, you can be in any part of the country, and you can want to be married in any part of the country. There's no urban business in this.
Yeah, Vishnuji, I agree to the point that yes, LGBTQ community is present everywhere, and we should not discriminate against them as far as individual rights are concerned, and that is why Article 21 is there. But as far as marriage rights, or for that point, or for that point, recognition of marriage rights, as far as our legal rights already present in concern, I don't think that is feasible unless we have proper studies, unless we have a uniform laws for everything, unless a society at large accepts it. See, here and there could be people from different categories, but you cannot say that, no, this gives a larger purview or reflects the society at large. And that is why we have a parliament where 542 people, 542 are there in Lok Sabha, 250 in Rajya Sabha. And then there are 28 states with assemblies. Those people actually reflect the people at large, and that is why first, judiciary should not interfere into this. And point number two, Vishnuji, and that is very important. Why do we marry in the first place in any society? Now that gives a right to have a procreative purposes. Now in Western society, wherever these same-sex marriages are allowed, you see that the society is failing in those states. Divorce rates are very high in those states. As compared to India, you see divorce rates are very less. As compared to India, you see that the family system is very much higher. You have a responsibility for child in India where welfare of the child is concerned. If you compare any Western countries where same-sex marriages are allowed, you see the rights or the duties of parents towards the child, and in India. So you will understand the difference.
Let's get a reply to what you've said. Sachin, is the goal of marriage procreation? Is it to have children?
Well, even if one assumes that it were to have children, technology has settled that debate, like I think quite a while ago, where, there are same-sex couples all over the world who have children. And, like Shashankji, you talked about studies. So there are studies which are present which show that children who are brought up by LGBT parents have no more or less likelihood of themselves being LGBT, or no more or less likelihood of being raised in a better or a worse way. And now we have a few decades of data on that. So I think that procreative argument is out. I think if we look at the Indian ethos, what an ideal Indian family is. What is an ideal family? A family where the members love each other, support each other, respect and trust each other, and they can go and achieve the pursuit of happiness in a safe, non-judgmental way. And so if the LGBT community wants to be a part of that, I don't think they are distancing themselves from the Indian ethos. I think they are in fact going towards the Indian ethos. I'd also, Vishnuji, with your permission, like to talk a little bit about this debate about judicial versus executive. Now, like Sudhbiji said, if you remember, the matter about 377 started in 1998. When the AIDS Bhedbhav Virodhi Andolan brought up the matter of condoms not being distributed in Tihar jail. And then at the time, I'm December 1975 born, so I was 22 years old. By the time decriminalization came, which was by the court, okay, yes. It was 2018, so I was 43 years old. So my life went by in waiting for the winds of social acceptance to change. My entire life went by. So how many millions of more Indian LGBT young people are we going to throw under the train like this and make them wait for 542 members of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha and all of our states to give them their due?
Would you like to reply, Rahul?
Yeah, just one submission. I genuinely respect the fight of the community, and perhaps we need more sensitization, we need more education. But many people, even though they say outside, are very comfortable with this. When we go to the inside, a huge middle class of our nation are having a lot of second thoughts about the entire thing. I'm not saying we should be a majoritarian state, but there is a genuine apprehension. That apprehension is not regarding criminalization. That apprehension is regarding according the status of marriage or according the status of our sacred marriage system to the homosexual community. So many people are having that genuine inhibition in their mind. They may not be able to voice it out. They may not tell it for the fear of being branded homophobic. But there is a huge section of population like that. Maybe the community activist can really have some kind of sensitization, education drives so that people will be better informed. But the humble submission is social acceptance comes first, then legal acceptance. That's the core submission here. First, there should be a social acceptance, then there should be legal acceptance. This is the premise from which we are arguing.
We're all part of the same society. Dr. Mitra, I'll read out one sentence from the petition today. It's submitted that the ripple effects of such decisions are difficult to anticipate. And Rahul referred to that in his own words. How would you reply to that? That this is going to result in something so big that we in India, in our society, can't handle it.
Yeah, see, I know many gay couples and lesbian couples who are connected, who are actually married in their own society. You may call it a spiritual marriage, you may call it a religious marriage. It's not legal, but they are still married to each other. So nothing earth-shattering has happened yet. I don't know when it is going to happen. Probably the world is going to fall apart. I'm still waiting for it to fall apart, but it hasn't. Okay. And there are a lot of people after 377 decriminalization who came out and proudly with their partner. Even before that, homosexuality existed. It exists since the inception of human beings. It exists in more than 500 species in this world. So I don't think nature or God or whatever higher power you believe in created homosexuals because it wanted to end the earth suddenly after some time. And if you give them their rights, oh my God, what is going to happen? What are these homosexuals going to do? They are going to rule over the world and heterosexuality will be somewhere else. No, nothing is going to happen like that. What is going to happen is that the homosexuals will get their rights and we are just asking for equal rights. We are not asking for special rights. There is nothing special in being married legally with a legal certificate. But the rights that come with it are equal rights that we also deserve, just like any other heterosexual couple. Living in a cis heteronormative society, people are very homophobic. And there is only one thing. Homophobia is a disease. Homosexuality is not. And homophobia has a treatment that is good education and awareness.
I think that's a good way of ending this particular debate. One way or the other, it's going to be a landmark judgment by the Supreme Court when it does come. It's a basic issue of rights for countless citizens of our country, our brothers and our sisters. We're going to leave this debate at that. I'm sure we're going to revisit it soon. Thank you all very much for being with us.